Okay, so we're trying another live stream tonight from the Baiting Hollow Hummingbird Sanctuary, where we also at night do astronomy. And my first step here is going to be to check that the live stream is actually happening by going on a separate computer to the live stream, and I'm going to go to my channel, which is Fred Smith. Let me see whether I can get that here. Welcome to it. I don't want that there. Options. Remind me tomorrow. Okay, now let's click there. Channel. And it looks as though, in fact, the live stream is happening. To the live stream. And I'm going to go to my channel. Good. So, at the moment, we're looking at an image of the Great Globular Cluster in Hercules M13. I did a 3-second exposure, but now I'm going to switch to the live stacking mode, and I'm going to initiate, make sure that we've got our calibration frames. That looks good. I'm going to do a longer exposure, 30-second exposure. I usually do a 30-second exposure because that way I know that with this telescope and without guiding and this mount, I will not get any star trails. Okay, so we're waiting for the first stack to show up here. The first and it should load it very soon. There we go, it's coming up now, and as you can see, it's a much better picture because the we've applied a calibration frame, just a longer exposure, 30 seconds, and we've also applied calibration frames, but we'll stack a few more. And what I'm going to try and do now is to add another input using switcher here, and there we go. And let's have a look at the top there. Good. And what we can do perhaps is go to information about the Great Globular Cluster M13. There we go, M13, and we'll have to add Globular Cluster, because there are guns that are called M13 and so forth. So here's the Wikipedia article, and we should be able to switch to that and have a brief look at it. And you can see there their photograph of the Great Globular Cluster. It was taken with a 24-inch telescope at the Mount Lemmon Sky Center. So now I want to go back to our own image of the Great Globular Cluster, which is this guy here, and and you can see that it's not too bad. We don't have as many stars but that's normal because it's a much smaller telescope. But basically, it looks very similar, I think. And of course, we can expand that out a little bit and look in a little bit more detail. And it's continuing to add exposures, so that now it's stacked a total of 5 exposures for a total exposure of 2.5 minutes. Of course, the Great Globular Cluster is very, very bright. So I thought now we'll stop the stack and we'll go briefly to another globular cluster in Hercules, which is M92. So I need to go to the live mode to do that, and go on my Messier list here. And I'm controlling the telescope through an app called Astro, and the device on the telescope itself called Astro. And here we have M92. And it's on an iPhone 8. It's very small, the app, and it's a little bit difficult to manipulate. And then on my iPad I have the Switch app running. So let's now go to M92, and as you can see, the telescope is slewing to the target, which is M92, but it doesn't have very far to go because they're both in the constellation Hercules. And it's checking that it's well centered. It looks at the surrounding stars and figures out where it is, and it says that it is centered. So we'll now remove the label Great Globular Cluster here, because we're no longer looking at the Great Globular Cluster, and we'll take an exposure of this, a 3-second exposure of M92, except I have to do that in the right place here, M92. We've already got, I think that was, here it comes, and there is M92. We'll get rid of the background information here. So I'm going to switch now to show you the Wikipedia page for M92. Okay, and there we go. And we can compare this with the Wikipedia page, and there it is. Okay, let's bring up the detailed image, and again we can compare the two, and well, my image doesn't have much color on it. We can zoom in a little bit here. And make a more detailed comparison. That's our current image of M92 with just a 3-second exposure, and that's the image in Wikipedia. So to clean up our image, we can go to the live mode and initiate a 30-second exposure, which will also have the calibration frames applied, and that should darken the background and bring out more of the detail here. And while that's happening, that's the Wikipedia picture of M92, and very soon we should see my picture. And I think that's it right there. And if we expand that out, you can compare the two images. Now, the Wikipedia image is a little bit, they brought out the star colors. I'm going to try and find a slightly better version of that. For example, well, there are other images in here. And for example, we have this one here. So let me show you this image. And this is from Jerry Macon, and it's on Astrobin, which is a standard repository for, let me just get this right here, pull that one up and put it on. And I think we should be able to click on that and bring it up in more detail. Oops, where is it? Loading, it's loading. And there's the Astrobin version of this, and possibly, well, it just, and again, you can see the comparison of the two. Okay, on mine telescope, our live, almost live, we're stacking in, and we've now got a total of a 2-minute exposure there. Okay. So I'm going to go back to our own image here and perhaps look for another image online, and not that one there, but well, what about this one here? There are a variety of them here. This is one is from something called CS Astronomy. Okay, we'll bring up a larger version of that. Globular cluster in Hercules. Excellent. And we'll swap around the images again. So the current image is from my telescope right now, a 3-minute exposure, and here is the let me get this right here. Here is the online image. Okay, now I should really tell you some of the details of where that comes from. But I think clearly the two images are not too dissimilar, Let's just put that out just a little bit there and switch back. Okay, so that's our current image, and this is the online image that was actually obtained, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. If I can get out of here. The photo was taken in May 2011 in Klepcha Observatory near Kiev, Ukraine. And it was taken with a 200mm reflector. So not too dissimilar. Mine's a 150mm reflector. Okay, So now we're going to stop our stacking here on M92, and we'll have a look at something else. Well, I think maybe we'll have a quick look at the Andromeda Galaxy. So we're going to make sure we've got that image downloaded. Okay. And we're going to go to preview again, exit. And so now we're going to go to and as you we're going to go to M31, which is the Andromeda Galaxy. There's a number of other interesting galaxies here, including the Sunflower Galaxy. So that's M83, so we might have a look at that, but let's have a quick look at Andromeda tonight. But do bear in mind that my camera doesn't really have a wide enough field to get a great image. Sorry, I've clicked the wrong one here. This one here. And now we're going to Andromeda, M31. In the meantime, we can bring up a picture, perhaps, of M31. M31 Galaxy. And we'll have a look at some of the images here. I think this one here is quite nice. It's from Wikipedia. Okay, now it's having difficulty. No, it isn't. It's just centering the galaxy, and while it's doing that, we will shift over to have a look at a really great picture of the Wikipedia article, which shows the two little satellite galaxies. I think they're M32 and M110 there. And now I'm going to switch over to our telescope view, and that's our first 3-second image of Andromeda, and we're going to now try and get a longer exposure of that wonderful galaxy, 2.5 million light years away, our closest companion galaxy in the universe. And this this image here in the Wikipedia article was obtained with a total of 60 30-second exposure, and our image that just came up was obtained with just one 30-second exposure. But it's already quite a nice view of the galaxy, and I'm going to get rid of some of the background so that you can see it. It's running roughly from the lower left diagonal up to the upper right diagonal. And we've now, I think, stacked another image So we have a total exposure of a minute. And in both cases you can see the, going back to the Wikipedia article, you can see the very bright galactic center and some of the vast spiral arms of the galaxy and the two satellite galaxies. Now on my image, even the closest satellite galaxy is actually out of the field of view. And I'm going to go back to my image now, because it is the current image from the telescope live here in Baiting Hollow. Now, the sound seems to be working okay, so that's good. And so what I'm going to try and do now is to move from M31, the main galaxy, to have a look at the satellite galaxy, which is, I don't think, visible in my images here. So we're going to now go to one of these little satellite galaxies, and in particular to M32, which is quite close to the galactic center of Andromeda. So we've now stacked a total of 6 exposures, so we have a total exposure of 3 minutes on the Andromeda Galaxy. And I'm going to stop that, download the image, and move to M32. Preview, exit, and we're going to pull up M32, which is right next door. Is it highlighted? Yes. M32, going to M32. Very little movement of the telescope. Now, I haven't so far got it set up so that we can also see the telescope and see it moving, but I'm hoping to set that up fairly soon. Using Switcher to do these live streams restricts me to Apple devices, and in particular to iOS devices, and so I'm going to need to add one more. I've ordered a mini iPad to help me do this. Okay, so you can already see the little galaxy here, the mini galaxy. Oops, cancel. I don't really want to do that. I just want to get there. And but that's just with a 3-second exposure. So we're going to go back to the live mode, and we're going to do a 30-second exposure. But while that is exposing, let's have a quick look at Wikipedia again, and in particular M32. So, and here it is. Okay, no, that's showing Andromeda and the 2 little satellite galaxies. But what I wanted to do, if I go back here, no, that's not what I want. I want to go to M32, there we go. And there it is. So that's what it looks like. I think I can get an even better image there and zoom in a little bit more. And let me just adjust that. And there we go. So it's basically a bright blob of light. It's a dwarf galaxy. Now let's have a look at our image of the dwarf galaxy, which we've been running, and you can see it there, and I'm going to zoom in on it. And again, you can see it's basically just a brown blob. So that's M32, which is very close to the heart of M31. But you remember at the periphery, there was M110. So that's where we're going to go next. We're going to go back to the overview of the Andromeda Galaxy, and you can see here this is the main galaxy. This is M32, which we've just been looking at, and now we'll have a quick look at M110 down here. Okay, so I'm going to stop the stacking, go back to the preview mode, and whiz up to 110, which is the very last object on the Messier list, and I believe it was not actually included by Messier himself, but was added afterwards from his observations, but he didn't get a chance to actually publish the last 10 galaxies. So the scope is now slewing over there, as you can see, and this is all being done automatically, which is very nice. And in fact, tonight I'm not even next to the scope. I'm indoors, where I have a somewhat better Wi-Fi connection. So even on the 3-second exposure, you can see a hint of 110. And we're now, of course, going to switch to live stacking mode and initiate a 30-second exposure. And while that is running, we will switch back to the Wikipedia view, and we'll have a closer look at this little galaxy down here, if we can. What's happened here? It takes time to load. I won't even go to the and maybe we can click on there. And so that's the view presented to us by Wikipedia. And now we've already stacked an image, so we can look at our own image, okay? Well, it's for a 30-second image, it's not too bad at all. You can start to see the stretched out narrow elliptical shape and the bright central core of M32 there. And you can see that my image is somewhat rotated compared to this image here. In fact, it's almost rotated through 90 degrees. And you can identify some of the stars, I think, in here which coincide. So let me pick out, well, let me see if I can find my pointer. Let's see whether that's working tonight. Here we go. I'm not sure whether this is going to work, but we'll give it a go. Okay, so we'll continue. We'll take this background stuff off so you can. This is the Galaxy M110, very close to the famous Andromeda Galaxy. And in the meantime,